All right. So just coming back, um, the complexity of the projects have become that much more compared to what it used to be. Now, can we run away from that? Answer is no. Now, just imagine when we went through the COVID times between 2020, 2021, and end of that. So almost like 1.5 years. Every organization was trying to come up with a solution with a vaccine along with a vaccine for COVID. Now, there was tremendous pressure in a traditionally, I would say, I wouldn't say very competitive, very pressure environment. So, for example, any pharmaceutical company, any drug manufacturing, generally they take a lot of time because drug discovery takes a lot of time. But here was a situation where everyone, let's say, for example, right from sourcing or procurement to the quality control, to the research guys, to the manufacturing guys, to technology, because there was a lot of technology driven testing that was involved in the entire project. So it became that much more complex, faster in a world when things were not clear. We did not know the solution. And that's the world that we are living in. And the reason why I'm setting this context up with you is to understand and appreciate what is the relevance of agile here. Okay, so the the focus of organizations have moved to agility because of the world that we live in. Customers' requirements are changing and they're changing fast. People get easily bored with a product or a service within 6 months, 1 year, max 2 years. So the shelf life or the product life cycle, as we call it as, of new products is becoming that much less and less as we go by. So now in this context, we want to understand what is this agility all about. I'm sure. OK, just quickly check with you all. OK, I want you to do a quick raise of hands on the Teams app itself. How many of you are working on projects which are in agile mode? How many of you are at least working or have worked? I'm just looking at my mobile phone. So how many of you are working or have worked on projects which are in agile mode? Now, yep, just let me see how your responses are. Either you can type in a yes into the chat message, or you can show your hands up. All right. So we've got the first response, which is Manan. OK, Manan says yes. What about others? You don't have to think so much. So does it mean that others do not have a view on, OK, rather have not worked on projects? Is that what I get? Maybe that's perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. OK, so now the next question would be, how many of you are aware of agile? So when I say agile, you have a basic understanding of what agile and agile projects are all about. If you can quickly say yes, no, that'll give me that'll help me fine tune my interaction with you. How many of you are familiar with the concepts of agile? If you can quickly type in yes or no. OK, yeah. All right. So now we've got a lot of OK. Maybe it took a little time on my mobile phone for your responses. OK, there's quite a few. Basic understanding. Yes. OK, wonderful. All right, great. OK. So thanks for your response. All right. So let's quickly spend about a few minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes to understand what is this agile and what is the relevance of this before we move into today's topic on user stories. So there are two important dimensions of agile. Many people say, you know what, agile is being flexible, completely flexible all the time. Requirements can change anytime during the project. That's half truth. So there are two dimensions of agility. One is flexibility, but at the same time, I also need to have stability. Okay, imagine you're watching a circus, and today circus is no longer to be seen, but then I'm sure you've seen people walking on those ropes, yeah, with a kind of a bamboo stick in their hand. Obviously, you can't expect somebody who is plump, okay, a little bit obese, trying to stand on that rope. Very, very difficult because the person is not flexible. Okay, but it is not that somebody who is so flexible that he's going to fall off. So I need, so the person who is holding the bamboo stick or whatever is that big rod that he's going to hold in his hand, that is offering him stability. The person is flexible, but then the bamboo stick that he's holding is giving him the stability. Agility is the right combination of flexible yet at the same time being stable. Okay, this is the first aspect. Now, why are companies going for agile? Very simple. Okay, first and foremost, frequent changes, a lot of changes that are happening both in terms of customer preferences. Technologies are becoming newer and it's becoming faster, quickly obsolete. Market requirements have changed. Okay, people want better products every 6 months. Okay, and of course, people don't have the time. So in many cases, customers and organizations don't have the time to give you 3 months of testing, 6 months of testing. They say that we need you to test the product fast. Yeah, make sure whatever experimentation you do, keep it at the bare minimum. So which means that I need to have great teams working on projects who are technically brilliant. Then we talk about uh, delivering. Don't talk to me about features and functionalities of a software. Tell me what value does the product deliver? There's no point in having 1,000 features in a software if only 10 of them make sense. So the question customers are asking is, hey, give me value for the money that I am paying. Then we also have the need for quickly adapting. So when all of these four conditions, the first four conditions are there, how do I deliver this? I need to be adaptive. Adaptive means agile. So adaptive and agile are synonyms. I need to quickly adapt. So if option A does not work, can I try option B? If option B does not work, can I deliver option C? So how quickly can I adapt based on the inputs that I am getting? So these are the top 5 reasons. There could be many more reasons. OK, now there are 12 principles. I'm sure some of you who are aware of agile, you may have gone through this, but for the benefit of some of those who are not, we'll quickly take you through those agile principles. OK, first and foremost, satisfaction of the customer is the supreme importance. Was it not there before? It was there, but now this becomes the key driver of projects. Then comes changing requirements are welcome. Consider 10 years ago, 5 years ago, if you are not working on a project which is agile, you resist those changes. You say, OK, let's go through a change control log. There's a meeting, somebody has to review, somebody has to approve. Generally try to keep those changes to the minimum. In agile, the expectation is that whenever there is a change, it is good for the product and it is good for the customer. Then we want to deliver software that works. It's not 100 features and out of which 20 don't work. We'll deliver 10. We make sure all the 10 works. Then the focus is on everyone working together, whether it is a developer, business analyst, or a financial analyst or a risk guy, everyone has to work together. Then I need great teams. So agile will not work unless people are not motivated intrinsically. Face-to-face conversation is ideal. I'm using the word ideal because that gives the maximum impact on projects. Then how do you measure the progress? It's not 60% complete, 75% complete. Either it works or it does not work. That's the beauty of agile. Don't confuse me with 80% completion, 95% boss, it is over. No, either you tell me it is working or it is not working. Then can we as a team be sustainable? What do we mean by sustainable? Can you work 14 hours a day, 12 hours a day, every week, month after month? Sorry, agile does not work. So we want, if I want motivated individuals, I need that to be sustainable. It can't be overtime. Once in a while, it's OK, but it can't be every day, every month and till the end of the project. The next principle is I cannot deliver a mediocre product. I want brilliance, and that's what the next principle is all about. Technical excellence and great design is one of the important principles. Then simplicity. This is my personal favorite. Now you may think, what is so great about simplicity? And simplicity also gets defined, and it says that simplicity is the art of maximizing work not done. It is so beautiful. What it focuses on is, let's not add things that do not create value. Now, this comes from the principle of lean. If some of you are aware of the lean principles, lean is about identifying activities that do not add value and taking it off. That's where Agile talks about. So Agile says, have the processes as much as required. Have documentation just as much the project requires. Okay, and so on. And this is another important dimension. The teams manage themselves. So it's not that the project manager has to go around somebody and say, hey, what did you do today? Okay, why are you sitting idle? No, that's not the way it works. So because they're highly motivated, they will manage among themselves. That does not mean they cannot come to you they cannot go to a manager. But the point is that it is self-driven. The last one is about the team reflects at all times. How can we improve? What went right? What did not go right? So these are essentially the 12 broad principles of Agile. And then let's talk a little bit about Agile frameworks. Agile is a broad Agile is a broad concept, but there have been multiple frameworks. And you will observe that I've highlighted the one in red. Scrum today is the most popular. There are a lot of others. Scrum is the most popular, just for your understanding. OK, so now when we talk about projects in Agile, OK, specifically Scrum, how does the work get done? So it gets now interesting. How does work get done in a world of Scrum? So there are broadly five, I would say, groups, whatever you may want to call it. So if you say the initiation phase, then there's a planning, implementation, review, retrospect, and release. So there are five broad phases that we go through. And OK, so now 1 second, I think I wanted to, yeah, there we go. Just give me a second. I want to show the workflow for some reason. There's some problem with my image. I was supposed to, I don't know why it has happened. Anyway, that's OK. We'll come to that in a minute. All right. OK, so essentially Scrum has kind of five broad phases or the processes. Now we are entering the world of what the topic for today is. So now that we've understood the context of Agile, the context of Scrum, now let me ask a quick question here. In the group, how many of you have written user stories? How many of you have written user stories? Or at least have seen user stories? Let me do one thing. I'll just put a small little, yeah, divider. OK, so quickly tell me, I mean, if any of you have worked on user stories. Yep, just type in the message and say, you know, yes, yes, I have, or whatever it is. Sorry, so did somebody say something? OK, anyone who has had any work, anything to do with creating user stories? Nobody? OK, or is it that it is taking time to load on my mobile? Purvi, what do you see? Do you see any responses?
Yeah. Yeah, there are people replying yes, yes. So there is Rahul, Harshal, Lalit, Kaustubh,
OK, all
Devdatta.
right. For some.
Yeah, many people are saying yes.
Oh, yes, yes. OK, it took a while for those responses to show up on my. Yes, there it is. I think we've got good responses. Wonderful. All right. So let me start with you folks. OK, so those of you who said yes, yes, yes. What are user stories? What are user stories? Anyone would like to kind of, if you want, you can raise your hand and then we will allow you to speak up as well. Who would like to volunteer and probably share?
The functionality which we want to create in a project, that we need to be entered in the stories with the prototypes, validations and all.
Okay, now there are some people in this group who may not have that experience of working on user stories. Can you make it a little simple for them to understand what you have done from your experience?
The total project is divided into many parts, like
Okay.
is what the user wants. They have divided into several parts, like small units, like things.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yep. Hi,
Fair
Shrikant,
enough.
Gulab here.
Okay.
So,
That was a good one. That was a good one. Okay. Anyone else would like to share?
yep. Shrikant,
Anyone
Gulab
else
right
would like
here.
to share?
Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, sure. So I didn't return the user stories yet, as my tech team was doing, but mainly I was able to understand that user stories mainly will define when we have something keyly want to deliver as a part of feature, or we can say the milestone of a project, which is a deliverable presentable. We will define it in the stories.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? One more last chance to somebody who wants to share.
Yeah.
Okay,
Rohit.
okay, sorry. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, go
I'll
ahead.
start. Yeah. So, as the name says, user stories. So basically, as a user, what all things I should be able to do, that should be written in the form of the story. And then we need to consider each and every aspect, whether it's a functional, it's non-functional, so that I, as a user in the back end, as well as it is considered, and as well as in the front end. So all that sum up to one particular. So even if it's a single click, what all things should be considered, it is returned in form of a story from the user perspective. So for me, that's a user story.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Perfect. So let me do one thing. I'll take a few steps back and then introduce you to the concept of user stories for some of you who may not be familiar. Now, typically on projects, okay, there is a business case. The business case tells you whether the project is technically feasible and financially viable. And it gets approved if it makes sense. So that's the first step of a project. Once that happens, then the project gets formally launched. And I have a project manager in a traditional role of project management. I have a project manager and he would start off with his team and gather requirements. That's how projects start. Now, in a world of agile, the process is similar, but then there are some cases, the terms that we use are slightly different. And there's a reason behind it. So in the world of agile, once the project is initiated, so there is a vision document that is created. So the project starts with a project vision document. What is this project all about? It is in generally a one paragraph. Okay, just to give you a small example from let's say Google, when they wanted to start this company. Okay, they said, what is it that we want to do with this organization? And at that point of time, they were not even a startup. Okay, nobody even knew. Maybe there were about 4 or 5 people who started the organization. Hey, what do we want to build? What product do we want to build? So they had, so for them, the vision of that product at that point, today what we call as the Google as a platform, at that point of time, maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago, they said, okay, what do we want this product to look like? So the vision of that product at that point of time was, I'm trying to put it in from my memory. I've read this book called The Google Way, and they've mentioned this. We want to put every possible information available on this planet. Okay, I'll try to repeat. Collect and make available all information available, all information on this planet in a common platform. Now that was a massive I would say, vision of that particular project. Now, it is a lot vague. It's a lot of vagueness there because we don't know how we are going to do that. Then what will happen is now we have the vision of the product. Then the team is put together. The team will go and interact with various people in your organizations, whether it is a telecom project, whether it is developing an app for a bank, or it can be an app for, let's say, something like a big basket, or maybe a Flipkart or whatever it is. You can take any of those. Today, the world of apps is all over us. So what happens now? They talk to people whom we call as stakeholders. Okay, so there are multiple stakeholders. They could be from the customer side, somebody from the end users, somebody from the management, and so on and so forth. So they go and get the requirements. Okay, now at this stage, the requirements are very high level. So in traditional projects, we call it as high level requirements. Agile calls them as epics. Okay, why do we call it as epic? Epic is something which is large. So when we say Ramayana or Mahabharata, they are epics because they are massive in their size. Now you can't deliver an epic because it's a very, very high or a large requirement. So what do we do now? In Agile, I break it down. I break it down to smaller or detailed requirements. We call that as user stories. So I have my large requirements, which I call as epics. Epics are further broken down to user stories. Now, do we have to further break down user stories? Answer is yes, we will do that. User stories are further broken down to day-to-day tasks, and those will have estimation. We will not talk about it in this session. We'll keep it for another session. So that's the background of projects in Agile, where we have high-level requirements called as epics. They are broken down into smaller or detailed requirements. We call them as user stories. Now, how do we write these user stories? OK, so we will get to that. So what are user stories? It's an expression of an end user's functionality that he or she wants. Hey, I want this. What does this software do? What does this application do? What should this service offer? OK, so that is a statement of what the end user's expectation is. OK, and what does it do? Because it is beautifully written in a format, we will also show you the format of how user stories are written. I don't need to create a big Word document explaining what the requirement is. OK, that's one best, I would say, advantage of it. Imagine if I have to explain how a feature works. Yeah, if I have to use a Word document, it will run. I have to write like Shobha Day. I mean, write pages after pages, and hopefully people may understand, may not understand. But user stories do the trick in very, very short and a very crisp manner. We will see that. Then it is written in a business domain language. Remember, the beauty of Agile is it is not, it makes the people who work on the teams to think like business users, to think like the customer, to think like the person who is actually going to use the end product. And that's the reason why it is written in a business domain language. OK, so if you're developing an app for, let's say, a bank, it will be written like the users of the bank or banking service. It could be the end customers, or it could be the managers in the bank, or it can be somebody from the, let's say, legal department of the bank. Now, sometimes when I have related user stories, we also use the concept called theme. For example, there could be 4 or 5 functionalities on how a website should look like. It's what we call as look and feel. Today we have a term that is called as UI, UX, user interface and user experience. Maybe there are 5 requirements, detailed requirements. So we can say, you know what, let's club these 5 requirements and we call it as UI theme or UX theme. What does that do? It helps later on in terms of how we deliver the project. All right, this is another dimension of user story. So along with user story, we also write acceptance criteria. What do we mean by acceptance criteria? The criteria based on which, when the user story is developed, OK, let's assume a developer develops let's say a designer designs the user story, and there is a developer who will create that story and somebody will test the user story, whether this function works or so on and so forth. Now, in that case, how do we know whether this user story is what the customer wanted, is what the user wanted? So there will be certain criteria, and we call that as acceptance criteria. OK, so with every user story, I also need to know the basis on which the user will either accept or reject this user story, either as done or not done. OK, these are some elements of the user story. Now, who writes the user story in a typical agile project? The role is what we call as the product owner. The product owner is the person who is responsible to write user stories. OK, any question up to this point before I proceed?
All good for us.
Anyone has any question, any thoughts, please? Before I go ahead. Is the concept of user story clear to everyone? I hope so. All right, good. So if that is clear, now let's go to the next step. OK, that's user story. Now, when you write a user story, we also need to know, hey, you've written a user story. Is that the way it should be written? OK, how do we know this? OK, some of you who had some experiences on writing user story, how do we know whether a user story is well written? Can anyone share their experience?
There is one question in chat, Shrikant, if you
OK,
can look at it.
What is that? Can you read it for me, please?
Yeah. So Rajdeep is saying only product owner writes user story. What about business analyst?
OK, all right. So, OK, who writes the user story? OK, so there's a difference between the person writing the user story and person who owns the user story or who is accountable for the user story. OK, so your question is valid. There are cases where you have business analysts who may write the user story. That's true. That is possible. But tomorrow, when it is developed, and if it does not work the way the user wanted, who will be pulled up? Who will be accountable, held accountable for it? It will be what we call as the product owner. The business analyst is not the person who is completely accountable to the overall project. If you are, so let's say, for example, in a specific organization, if you think the business analyst is completely accountable for everything, then what he is doing is the role of a product owner. So here I'm more interested in the roles rather than the title given to an individual in an organization. Yes, business analysts they can help you write the user stories. But once the product is delivered and if the customer does not accept the product, then the responsibility or the accountability of that failure is primarily with the product owner. I'm not saying business analyst is not responsible, but the person who is going to be first pulled up by the boss or by the management is the product owner. I hope I'm making sense. OK, so anyone else? Anyone thinks, OK, well, how do you know whether the user story is well written or not? How do you know whether user story is well written? Yes. Now, since I did not see any response on the chat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to this concept called the INVEST model. OK, it's a very, very powerful model. INVEST stands, it's an acronym, and it has 6 components. We'll go we'll go one by one. The first thing is that every user story must be independent. What do we mean by independent? Yeah, I cannot have one story saying, you know what, this story will work or this requirement will work only if the other requirement is completed. Now that is a problem. That's a problem for various reasons. One, which is very obvious, is at the time of estimation, I do not know which comes first and which will take how much of effort. So the sequencing of the user story becomes a problem. The second one is in terms of estimation of effort. So, and that's the reason why we always say that when you write user stories, they must be independent of another. What if you think you are not able to do it? Then you can do one thing, you can split those user stories. By splitting, you can say, you know what, if I really think there is, when you write a user story, it becomes a little bit cumbersome. The best thing is to keep it simple and split it as much as possible. So that's first principle, or let's say the first test of a good user story. It is independent of another one. Then N stands for negotiable. Remember one thing about Agile. In Agile, you don't have so much time to spend. We all work in Agile projects where every iteration or sprint is about, let's say 1 week is very less, 2 is generally what we have seen, 4 is the highest that you normally would see. OK, so ideally, the time that I have to deliver, rather to design, to develop, test and deploy a feature or a functionality is between 2 to 4 weeks. Now, in that time, you cannot spend, let's say 50% of it to figure out the granular level of this. OK, this website, this screen, this color, this subcolor in the font, and then this kind of a what do you call? I want a drop down box. No, I want a combo box. Now, when you are writing user stories, don't get to that level of detail. OK, because it does two things. It's a waste of time, because remember, you are running against time when working on Agile projects. And the second one is you also need to do estimation later on. OK, so keep as much as possible, yeah, open-ended. So when you write a user story, keep it open, and we'll show some examples as well. The next one is it has to be valuable. What do you mean by valuable? Don't write your user story just for the sake of user story. Ask that person, what is the value that you get? If it does not add value, don't waste your time as well as the team's time. The next one is estimable. Now, when you write user story, what is the point if I'm not able to estimate? So why would I have this problem when the user story is not well written? We'll take an example as we come to it. Then it must be small. OK, as the very word says, user story is a small user story. It can't be an epic. OK, so generally there is a thumb rule. OK, there are exceptions to all of this. So the thumb rule says that any user story should not be more than 3 person weeks, which is 15 days, 15% days of effort. That's maximum. Then it should be testable, meaning that if I write a user story, there should be a way to test that it is done or not done. So bottom line, remember this acronym INVEST: independent. Every user story must be independent of another. It should be negotiable. There should be some leg space for you to maneuver when you come to the development stage. Everything must add value to the customer. Then it should be possible for you to estimate. If you find it difficult to estimate, then it is not going to work. Then it should be reasonably small. And finally, it has to be testable. OK, so this is one very, very powerful model to see whether your user stories are making sense or not. Now, every user story follows a simple format, and this is a very powerful format. OK, now look at the beauty of this. It says as a. OK, now I've put within quotes or other brackets role/persona. Now that is actually of the user. OK, who is this? Maybe I'm a marketing manager. I am a finance manager. I am a product head. I am the legal head. OK, what is the role that I'm performing? So when somebody gives you their detailed user stories, in what perspective is that requirement coming? So document that. Then I should be able to. So what do I want from this feature or functionality? So I put that within bracket. What is my describe that requirement? The next thing is so that, meaning what is the benefit that I'm going to get by this user story? It could be as simple as a report. It can be a filter. It can be, let's say, a screen, whatever it is. The first thing is I should know who wants this user story. Why does this? What is the description of the requirement and what is the benefit that you get? You'll see the example below there. So example is, as a database administrator, I should be able to revert behind a selected number of database updates. So in case something goes wrong, okay, this is more from a database administrator's requirement. He says, as a database administrator, okay, I should have a functionality to revert behind a selected number of database updates. Yeah, the last update, the one before that, and so on. Why do I need this? So that the desired version of the database is restored. In the event of an emergency, in the event of a failure, I can go back to my earlier version of the database. So you see three components of a user story. Who wants it? What is required? And why is that required? Now imagine if you had to explain all of this without using this format. Write it in a Word document. It would have taken you maybe half a page, maybe a quarter of a page. You have reduced it to maybe just 2 or 3 lines. That's the power of a user story. Along with the user story, you also see that there is a acceptance criteria. Now that acceptance criteria says, OK, now you know what, when will I say that this user story is met? Now here the question is the desired version. Now maybe it should give me an option. I'm just hypothetically giving you this. So if there is a database crash or there is a server failure, it should prompt me, hey, you know what? We were not able to restore the old one. So which version do you want to go back to of the database? The last version was today. The one before that was yesterday. Dates, you check or select that and automatically it goes. So now as somebody, as a user, I need to say, you know what? This is the criteria based on which I will say it is accepted or not. So which means that it says that when there is a problem, when I need this requirement, when I have this requirement, I should be able to click or select and automatically the version should get restored. If it happens, I say this user story is excellent. If it does not, then I say it is rejected. Any question up to this point, please?
Shrikant, sorry to interrupt.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yep, can we go through the bit brief again on the acceptance criteria description?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Okay, can you just give a repetitive brief on the acceptance criteria description?
Okay, all right. So acceptance criteria is not specific to user stories alone. Let me give you a simple example. OK, so let's say I have a requirement. I'll give you a small example. There are many examples. I'll give you one simple example. OK, so let's say you go to, where are you based out of?
I'm based in Vadodara.
Vadodara. OK, all right. And which is your favorite eating place in Vadodara?
Eating place. So specifically, I'll say a race course.
Sorry, which one?
A race course.
Race course. OK, and let's say, OK, let's assume you go there. OK, so next time I'm in Vadodara, I'll probably try and visit this place. OK, and which is your most favorite food or dish that you like in this place?
Poha.
Poha, wonderful. OK, now that's a beautiful example as well. Now, let's say you go there early morning, OK, and you want to have your breakfast and you want to start off with poha there. OK, and you go there. So what is your requirement? Your requirement is to ensure that your early morning hunger is taken care of. OK, but that's a broad requirement. Now you say your user story is I want to satisfy my hunger through poha. And maybe I don't know whether they serve you with chutney or a little bit of save on that. I do not know. Anyway, we'll keep that aside. But your acceptance criteria is, look at the acceptance criteria now. You will accept the poha only if it is served hot. Yes or no?
Yep.
It has to be fresh and hot. Second, it has to be served in a neat plate along with a neat spoon. And the place should be clean so that you can eat with a peaceful mind.
Right.
Okay, so all these are your acceptance criteria. There are 4 acceptance criteria. Hot poha, along with a hygiene plate and a spoon, and then a neat place. So these become your acceptance criteria.
Got it.
So based on that, you will say, you know what, that poha was good or bad, whether you're going to say wow to that owner of the hotel, or you're going to say, ugly, I will not come the next time because it was not worth it. So you are deciding whether it is meeting your requirement or not based on these 4 small acceptance criteria.
Right. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did that help you understand the acceptance criteria as a concept?
Yep. Yep. Far better.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
So the next thing is, okay, there is also another term called done criteria. So many
Hello.
times people say, sorry, yes, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah, I have a question related to this. Can you go to the previous slide?
yes, please.
So the role that we have to mention. So in our one company, we used to always write as a developer. So as a developer, I should be able to do so and so thing as a developer. So everyone will write as a developer. But I understand that this should be the person on the client end for which the system is being developed.
Correct. You're
So the
absolutely right.
person who is like performing the functional function
Yes,
on the client side means on the client company side who will be
yes,
using the system. I
perfect.
think that should be the person, right? For
You are
example,
right. Your understanding is right. Yes,
the warehouse keeper will do some
yes,
entries when the goods are received. So as a warehouse keeper, I should be able to do the inward entry like this should be. Am I
correct. You are
correct or not?
absolutely right.
Okay.
Absolutely right.
Then why
It's not, yeah.
in technical, but the technical team always write as a developer?
Okay, that is incorrect. That is not right. Because see, I am not building the user story for my benefit. See, if I'm a
Yes.
developer, I'm not writing this user story for me to use it. It is somebody else. I'm building this product or software for a customer, and the customer has multiple users. Yeah, as you rightly said, there could be one user who is a warehouse manager. Another one could be, let's say, somebody who is managing the GST tax part of it. Another person who is looking at CFO reporting. So all these people are 3 different roles or personas. You're right. It should not be written from a developer standpoint.
Shrikant,
Yeah.
hello.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So basically, for example, if we need to create a one report and the report of that report, the users are multiple role. Like operator can see the same report and the manager can see the same report. So in that case, the different user stories we need to be created for a single report, or we need to be add as a operator slash as a manager can view this report type of thing.
Okay, good question. Okay, so but I will answer it slightly differently. Okay, now if there are 3 different users who are accessing the data, okay, my understanding, having been in the industry for over 20 years, is that what the operator sees and what the manager sees and what the vice president sees are very different. The data
Yeah,
for all the
agree.
3 may be the same, but what gets presented is very different. The operator sees information about which is which is relevant to his role, whereas the CFO may see something which is more confidential. But the data for all these may be from the same database. So what I would do is I would create them as 3 separate user stories, unless what you're saying is that it's one common report that is shared with 3 people. If that is the case, then it would be one user story. But if the content of each of these reports are different, then it should be written as 3 separate user stories.
Yep.
Okay.
So, to be more prescribed, Shrikant, we can say the end deliverables are different. Then we should better to split it in the different stories and acceptance
Yes,
criteria. Also, we define it accordingly.
yes, you are right. You are right.
So in actually in our organization, a developer will create a report based on the user stories, right? So if we create a three user story for a single report, in that case, user developers need to work more for a single report, and they need to be worked 3 times for a single report.
That's okay. That is okay. See, for example, see, I'm doing a consulting for one of the organizations. Now, there are some project related updates that are given. Okay. The only thing is that what goes to the senior managers, it's the same project. So there are, let's say, about 20 projects. Okay. Now, what gets reported to the senior manager is different compared to what goes to the CEO. It's the same data. So the number of projects is exactly the same 20. The projects are also the same. But what the CEO sees is very different than what the senior managers see. So in this case, when the team worked on the dashboard used the same data, the basic data was the same. But the manner in which it was presented to senior managers was very different compared to what the CEO saw. And obviously, they were created as two user stories at the time of developing these two dashboards.
Okay.
OK, so this is a format. It's a very, very powerful format. OK, now the next thing is, OK, I talked about another concept called done criteria. So many times people confuse between acceptance criteria and done criteria. Some go to the extent of saying both are the same. It is not the same. OK, so if you see, acceptance criteria is unique to individual user stories, whereas done criteria is to a group of user stories or all user stories. If you see this example, it makes it very clear. Let's look at the acceptance criteria example. It says this is for an online shopping portal. As an online grocery shopper, I should be able to add or delete multiple items from the shopping cart before I check out so that I can be certain that I'm meeting my budget. Now, what is acceptance criteria for this user story? He says, first, when I add this, it should automatically get updated to my shopping cart. The moment I select an item and I say add to cart, it should reflect in my cart. Number one. Second one, if I don't want it, I can remove it. I can add something else. So the second one, a user can successfully delete or modify the content whenever I want from a single window. Third, cart items are saved until the user clears its contents. So today, when we use shopping carts, let's say you're on Amazon, even if you log out, OK, it shows you an option in some cases. Do you want to clear your shopping cart, or in some cases they retain it? So these are three criteria that this user story has. Now compare this with done criteria. Now the example is for an automotive company. So here they say the design is approved by the technical excellence division. Now, if you observe, this is not a specific user story related. They're talking about the design overall. There may be the design may have 20 functionalities. Whatever that functionality may be, we have user stories for it. But at the end of it, the technical excellence division must approve this. Then there's another done criteria. This is met only when the prototype passes all the wind tunnel tests as mandated by the aerodynamics division. Now you see the difference between acceptance criteria and the done criteria. So that's the fundamental difference. Acceptance criteria is at the user story level, whereas done criteria is applicable to either a group of user stories or every user story. It's more generic in nature. OK, so that's the fundamental difference. OK, so what we are going to do is I'm going to show you an example. OK, I'll give you maybe about a minute. OK, about 45 seconds to a minute. This is an example of a user story. And I want you to tell me, what do you observe about this user story? As a marketing manager, I want timely campaign reports so that I can plan my quarterly campaign budget. So this is something that a marketing manager wants. We are developing an app, and one of the things is the marketing manager has certain requirement. Closely look at every word in this user story. Tell me if What do you think about this user story? Okay. Joshi P says it's subjective. Okay, we'll wait for other responses. So Purvi, while it takes a little bit of time on my mobile to refresh, or maybe I can, because I want to keep the screen on. So I want your help to read out whatever inputs we get.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I think you should be able to say now, what is your observation about this user story? Is this okay? How many of you think it's okay? Perfect. There's no problem with this. Everything looks perfect. How many of you say that?
So
Okay,
Shakil
so
is saying,
yeah, I see Shakil's comment. Okay. What does it say? This is vague and violates invest. Okay. Can you unmute yourself and share your view, Shakil? Why do you think it is vague?
I think it violates the estimable point. We cannot
Okay, can you
estimate
elaborate
what
a little
the
more?
marketing manager wants by timely campaign reports. We don't know the format of the reports, the domain,
Okay, so let's
the
do one.
contents of the
Okay.
reports.
Oh, 1 second. Let's go a little slow. Okay. Can you repeat what you just now said? So as a marketing manager, that role is clear. Role clarity is there. Okay. Where do you think is the problem?
By campaign reports, we cannot know what exactly is required. So estimation will be one problem.
Oh, no, we'll
Then
come to that. We'll come to estimation.
dependency will be one problem.
No, 1 second, just a second. We'll just go a little slow. So here, when we say campaign reports, what we are trying to say is that the company runs marketing campaigns every maybe quarter. They want to get a report of the campaigns of the marketing team has done. So let's say, for example, they ran a campaign on television. They ran a campaign on social media. Well, let's say they ran a campaign on Twitter, on Instagram, or maybe newspaper. So they want to know how their campaigns went. So that's what this campaign report is all about.
Yep.
Do you see an issue in that?
Nope, the user requirement is
unless,
completely clear.
But unless
Sorry?
we first define how the campaign reports look like, so it cannot be termed as the user story.
It cannot be. It's not a user story, is it?
Shakil, what you are saying, that is again the next level. So this is a requirement of user, which is a part of user story. She can correct me if I'm going somewhere wrong. Based on that, you have to define the acceptance criteria. Then we
Oh,
will
no,
go
no,
to
don't
the
worry
next
about
stage.
acceptance criteria right now. Okay,
Yep.
we don't have to
Okay,
worry about
okay.
acceptance criteria. This is the user story. Let's assume I'm the marketing manager and you are the guy who's developing this product for me. Okay, and there's online app. Okay, I'm the marketing manager and I say, you know what, I want timely campaign report. So which means that all the campaigns that we have done, I should, whenever I want, I should be able to run those reports, whether it is digital, whether it is newspaper or social media. I should be able to get those reports. And what do I do with that report? So that with those reports, I am able to plan my quarterly campaign budget for future reference. That is the user story. Is there a problem with this user story?
One thing I feel is if I ask about the time, is it past 1 month, 6 months?
Excellent. Beautiful. Yeah. That is the problem with this user story. Yeah. Who said that?
Dhruv.
Okay, Dhruv, you're bang on. The problem is with the word timely. Now, I want campaign reports. Okay, is it quarterly report? When do you want it? Do you want it every day? Do you want it on a weekly basis? Do you want it on a quarterly basis, half yearly basis? That is vague. Everything else is fine. The user is fine. Okay, what am I going to do with that is fine. But my requirement has one aspect which is vague. Instead, I should have rephrased it. I want, let's say, quarterly campaign reports. Then it would have made sense. Yeah, if we were doing this in a classroom, you would have got a chocolate for it, Dhruv. But beautiful. The problem is with the word timely. There is no definition of timely. It can be month, it can be 2 months, it can be quarter. We do not know. That's the problem with this. Did everyone see the beauty of this user story and why this was a small little issue with this? All right. So what else are we going to talk? I mean, let's see what is the plan. We are almost on time. We've just passed through this. OK, oh, sorry, I don't know why this slide came up here. Sorry about this. OK, so what? OK, so what we wanted to cover. OK, so just to quickly wrap things where we are. OK, first we talked about the concept of how the world is changing, how industries are changing, a lot of unpredictability in the systems across the world. It's not just one country or another. And in that context, what agile means. Agile is about flexibility at the same time stability. Then we talked about the 12 principles of agile. OK, and starting with customer satisfaction, deliver working software, sustainable development, a great technically brilliant team, focus on design, sustainable development, simplicity. OK, and working software is the only way to measure the progress, no 75%, 80%. Then we introduced you to the world of agile, where we said how projects get initiated. Then high level requirements are what we call as epics. And then epics are further broken down to user stories. And user story, how do we know whether a user story is good or bad? By following the principles of INVEST. I for independent, N for negotiable, V for valuable, E for estimable, OK, S for small, and T for testable. Then we have a format for writing a user story, which is as a role or a persona. What do I want? And what do I do with that requirement? So that's the benefit. With every user story, we have what we call as an acceptance criteria. The parameters based on which, when the user story is developed, whether it will be accepted or not. And we saw the example of a good user story and a user story which had a small little flaw in it. OK, and what we wanted to probably quickly talk about is, I mean, this slide, I think it is supposed to be not there, but anyway, this is just for you to. OK, so good that it disappeared. OK, one of the things that I wanted to reflect as we come to the end of the session today, and we'll take some more questions if there are, is that the world is changing fast. OK, I can go back to my time, my first project about 20 years ago, and the most recent project that I'm doing with a consulting organization as a consultant, sorry, is very, very different. OK, and the way things have changed, the tools have changed, the attitude of the organization, the customer demands, the pressure on timelines and cost, everything is very different. OK, so which means that unless we change fast and learn more things, we'll probably be left behind. Now, it means that whatever we've done in the last 10 years, last 7, 5, 6 years in your respective careers, they were good, but the future requires a little more different set of skills. And that is what I want to leave you with. OK, and if there are any more questions, I'm more than glad to take up. I know we've just come to the end of the session. If there's anything that you want to ask, please do so.
Yeah, I have one.
Yes.
So should we go to that much low level, acceptance criteria, where it says a report should be in a PDF or CSV format?
Of course, yes. So the acceptance criteria would have that. Yes, you're right. So in terms of the acceptance criteria, the report should be whether it is in a PDF format or is it a CSV format? Well, yes, that will be one of the acceptance criteria. Perfect.
Okay. And if you're shooting emails, it will come under non-functional requirements, or like?
No, it depends on what is in the email, at what stage of the product. So if it is, let's say, every time the user makes an online transaction, an email goes to that registered email ID. It's not a non-functional requirement. It is one of the requirements.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So Purvi,
I
I mean,
have one question.
yeah, yes, please go ahead.
So in Azure DevOps, when we
Yeah.
use the sprint for a sprint cycle,
Yes.
in one company there was a method of the methodology was to follow 1 month cycle,
Okay.
and they were using Kanban board.
Okay.
While in another company, we were using the 21-day sprint cycle with the
Okay.
agile with the Azure DevOps sprint board, not the
Okay.
Kanban one. So are
Okay.
these two different methodologies?
Okay. So yeah, it's a good question. So you will see that when we look at Scrum in general, okay, and I said earlier that Scrum is the most popular agile framework. Scrum gets its inspiration from all other approaches, including Kanban. So to that extent, they are not fundamentally different. The only thing is the look and feel is slightly different, but the spirit is still the same. See, even in Scrum, we use a Scrum board. So in Kanban, we use a Kanban board. But there's one thing which is different in Kanban. When you adopt the Kanban approach, the focus is on reducing your work in progress. I don't want too many things waiting in line. So what we call as WIP. So WIP limits or work in progress limits are set so that we don't want the first three guys to develop a lot of software, but it is just standing in line or it is in the queue for testing and let's say approval. So we don't want to have that situation. That's one minor change between typical Scrum and Kanban, but other things are more or less the same.
There is
Okay.
one question from Rajdeep Singh.
Yes, please.
For field like data engineering, what kind of user stories you can write? Because the user is not part of the work.
Okay, so now if the user is not part of the work, do you know for who? I mean, do you at least have an idea what the user wants? So there may be some other person who will represent the user. Okay, so obviously you will not create user story on your own. Somebody would give the requirement. So at least if you know that, I think we can probably write the user story on behalf of that user. It can still be done. Okay, so I mean, if there's something, what I can do is anyway, I'm going to share our email IDs. So whoever it was, you can always connect with me. The same number is on WhatsApp as well. So if you have any specific question, we can take it offline as well. And by the way, Puri, you wanted to share something with the group?
Yeah, so those who are interested to do this full-fledged training for Scrum Master and also getting yourself certified, we are having one workshop that is starting next weekend, which will be 17th and 18th of December. So those who are interested to be a part of it, you can contact me after, maybe tomorrow by phone or by email, and we will be glad to have you join. I will share with you more information once you connect with me.
Yeah, it's a 2-day full day workshop, completely case study based. So it'll be fun and learning at the same time. Okay, so on that note, thank you for being a wonderful audience over the last 1 hour. I thoroughly enjoyed this little interaction, and I hope you got a sneak peek into what Agile is, what user stories are, and what are some of the do's and don'ts of writing user stories. Okay, on that note, I'll let you go unless anyone has any specific question. Have a wonderful weekend, and then take care of yourself as winter sets in.
Thank you, Srikanth. It was an awesome session.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Have a lovely weekend, everyone.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Hi, Shrikant.
Who is this, Shakil?
Yeah, I had one question not related to actually Agile, but different certificates that are like available in market. So, like what it is more valuable in today's times? Like IIM and IITs are also coming up with project management certifications, and
Okay.
we have PMP and Prince 2 also. So I have
Hmm.
done Prince 2 practitioner, but up till now, no, I am a technical architect, and I have been in technical field only all throughout. As now I'm a technical architect. So in none of the company they have asked me for my Prince 2 certification or project management, whether I want to go into project management or not. So I am assuming now that no one will care whether I want to go into project management or not. But what if I do like this project management certificate from IIT? Are
Okay.
they of
Can I
any?
connect with you tomorrow for this thing? Because then we can discuss in detail this thing.
Okay,
I have your number. I will surely connect with you tomorrow.
okay, sure, sure.
Your number is working, right?
Yeah, I think you had called me earlier also.
So
Because
fine.
of this, like I do not consider it's worth like to pursue now in any project management related certificate. I have already spent 45,000 in Prince 2
No,
or
no,
the Prince 2 certification.
yeah. So it depends on like, which organization you are applying and which industry you are into. But we will
I'm in IT
definitely,
only, software development means I'm in .NET specialty.
yeah. Let's connect tomorrow, Shakil.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, thank
sure.
you.
Only one question. Sorry.
Huh.
The
Yes, Dhruv.
cement patent, yeah, is it a paid workshop or it's a free one? Just wanted to.
No, this 2 days full workshop is a paid workshop.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, because it's a full day workshop. No? It's from morning 9 to
Yeah.
evening 6 p.m. And we will also prepare you for exams. So once you go through the training, you can also take your certification from the certification body directly, either through scrum.org or through Scrum Study.
Okay. Thank you.
If you want more details, I will share with you tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I will call you tomorrow again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, thanks everyone. Good night.